story that you're going to see today, and it has been revised by the Honorable Byron Lovelace and the Honorable Susan Besser. And the name of it is Hidesato, My Lord Bag of Rice. Enjoy.
A brave warrior known to all as Tuara Toda, or My Lord Bag of Rice. His true name was Hidesato, and this is the story of how he came to change his name.
One day, Hidesato sallied forth in search of adventures, for he had the nature of a warrior and could not bear to be idle. So he buckled on his two swords, took his huge bow, much taller than himself, in his hand, slung his quiver on his back, and started out.
He had not gone far when he came to a bridge spanning one end of the beautiful lake Biwa. On the bridge, lying right across his path, was a huge dragon. That it looked like the trunk of a large pine tree, and it took up the whole width of the bridge. Its head rested on one side of the bridge, while its tail lay against the other. The monster seemed to be asleep, and it breathed fire and smoke out of its nostrils.
At first, Hidesato was alarmed at the sight of this horrible reptile lying in his path, for he would have to either turn back or walk right over its body. However, he was a brave man, and he put aside all fear and went forward dauntlessly. Crunch, crunch, crunch. He stepped now on the dragon's body, now between its coils, and then without even one glance backward, he went on his way.
Hidesato had only gone a few steps when he heard someone calling him from behind. On turning back, he was much surprised to see that the monster dragon had entirely disappeared, and in its place was a strange-looking woman, who was bowing most ceremoniously to the ground. The woman wore a crown in the shape of a dragon's head and a sea-green dress. Hidesato knew at once that this was no ordinary mortal, and he wondered where the dragon had gone. Had it transformed itself into this woman? And what did the whole thing mean? He came up to the woman on the bridge and asked her,
Was it you that called me just now?
Yes, it was I, answered the woman. I have a favor to ask you. Do you think you can help me?
I will if I can.
Answered Hidesato.
But first tell me, who are you?
I am the dragon queen of the lake, and my home is in these waters just under this bridge.
And how may I help you?
Said Hidesato. I want you to kill my mortal enemy, the Centipede, who lives in the mountain over there. And the dragon queen pointed to a high peak on the opposite shore of the lake.
I have lived in this lake for many years, and I have a large family of children and grandchildren. For some time now, we have lived in terror, for a monster centipede has discovered our home, and every night it comes and carries off one of my family.
I am powerless to save. I am powerless to save them. If this goes on much longer, not only shall I lose all my children, but the monster will get me too. I'm very unhappy, and I am determined to ask the help of a human being. For many days I have waited on the bridge in the shape of the horrible serpent dragon that you saw, in the hope that some strong, brave man would come along.
But all who came this way, as soon as they saw me, were terrified and ran as fast as they could. You are the first man I have found able to look at me without fear. So I knew at once that you were a man of great courage. I beg you to have pity upon me. Will you not help me and kill my enemy, the Centipede?
On hearing her story, Hidesato felt very sorry for the Dragon Queen and promised to do what he could to help her. The warrior asked where the Centipede lived so that he might attack the creature at once. The Dragon Queen replied that its home was on the mountain Mikami, but that since the monster came every night at a certain hour to the palace of the lake, it would be better to wait then and kill it there.
So Hidesato was led to the palace of the Dragon Queen under the bridge. As he followed his host downwards, the waters parted to let them pass, and his clothes did not even feel damp as he passed under the waves. Never had Hidesato seen anything so beautiful as this palace built of white marble beneath a lake. He had often heard of the Dragon Queen's palace at the bottom of the sea, where all the servants and retainers were saltwater fishes. But here was a magnificent building in the heart of Lake Biwa. The dainty goldfishes, red carp, and silvery trout waited upon the Dragon Queen and her guest.
Hidesato was astonished at the feast that was spread for him. The dishes were crystallized lotus leaves and flowers, and the chopsticks were of the rarest ebony. As soon as they sat down, the sliding doors opened and 10 lovely goldfish dancers came out, and behind them followed 10 red carp musicians with the koto and the samisen. Thus the hours flew by till midnight, and the beautiful music and dancing had banished all thoughts of the centipede. The Dragon Queen was about to pledge the warrior in a fresh cup of wine when the palace was suddenly shaken by a tramp, tramp, as if a mighty army had begun to march not far away.
Hidesato and his host both rose to their feet and rushed to the balcony, and the warrior saw on the opposite mountain 2 great balls of glowing fire coming nearer and nearer. The Dragon Queen stood by the warrior's side, trembling with fear. Hidesato looked where his host pointed, and in the dim light of the starlit evening, behind the 2 balls of fire, he saw the long body of an enormous centipede winding around the mountains. Hidesato showed not the least sign of fear. He tried to calm the Dragon Queen.
Don't be afraid. I shall surely kill the centipede. Just bring me my bow and arrows.
The warrior noticed that he had only 3 arrows left in his quiver. He took the bow and, fitting an arrow to the notch, took careful aim and let fly. The arrow hit the centipede right in the middle of its head, but instead of penetrating it, it glanced off harmlessly and fell to the ground.
Not discouraged, Hidesato took another arrow, fitted it into the notch of the bow, and let fly. Again, the arrow hit the mark, striking the centipede right on the middle of its head, only to glance off and fall to the ground. The centipede was invulnerable to weapons. When the Dragon Queen saw that even this brave warrior's arrows were powerless to heal the centipede, she lost heart and began to tremble with fear.
The warrior saw that he had now only 1 arrow left in his quiver, and if this one failed, he could not kill the centipede. He looked across the waters. The huge reptile had wound its horrid body 7 times around the mountain, and would soon come down to the lakes.
Then suddenly the warrior remembered that he had heard that human saliva was deadly to centipedes. But this was no ordinary centipede. It was so monstrous that even to think of it made one creep with horror. Hidesato was determined to try his last chance. So he took his last arrow and spat on it. Then he fitted the notch into his bow, took careful aim once more, and let fly.
This time, the arrow again hit the centipede right in the middle of its head. But instead of glancing off harmlessly as before, It struck home into the creature's brain. With a convulsive shudder, the serpentine body stopped moving, and the fiery light of its great eyes and 100 feet darkened to a dull glare like the sunset of a stormy day, and then went out in blackness. A great darkness now overspread the heavens. The thunder rolled, the lightning flashed, and the wind roared in fury. It seemed as if the world were coming to an end. The Dragon Queen, her family and retainers, all crouched in different parts of the palace, frightened to death, for the building was shaken to its foundation. At last, the dreadful night was over. Day dawned beautiful and clear. The Centipede was gone from the mountain.
Hidesato called to the Dragon Queen and all the inhabitants of the palace to come out, for the Centipede was dead, and they had nothing more to fear. The gratitude of the Dragon Queen knew no bounds. The whole family came and bowed down before the warrior, calling him their preserver and the bravest warrior in all Japan. Another feast was prepared, more sumptuous than the first. All kinds of fish, prepared in every imaginable way, raw, stewed, boiled, and roasted, served on coral trays and crystal dishes, were put before him, and the wine was the best that Hidesato had ever tasted in his life. To add to the beauty of everything, the sun shone brightly, the lake glittered like a liquid diamond, and the palace was 1,000 times more beautiful by day than by night.
His host tried to persuade the warrior to stay a few days, but Hidesato insisted on going home, saying he had finished what he had come to do and must return. The Dragon Queen and her family were all very sorry to have him leave so soon, but since he would go, they begged him to accept a few very small gifts. So, they said, in token of their gratitude to him for delivering them forever from the horrible enemy, the Centipede.
As the warrior stood in the porch ready to give leave to the queen, a train of fish was suddenly transformed into a retinue of servants, each carrying presents for the brave Hidesato. The presents they carried were as follows. First, a large bronze bell. Second, a bag of rice. Third, a roll of silk. Fourth, a cooking pot. And fifth, a flute.
Hidesato did not want to accept all these presents, but as the Dragon Queen insisted, he could not well refuse. The Dragon Queen accompanied the warriors as far as the bridge, and then took leave of him with many bows and good wishes, leaving the procession of servants to accompany Hidesato to his house. The warrior's household and servants had been very much concerned when they found that he did not return the night before, but they finally concluded that he had been kept by this violent storm and had taken shelter somewhere. When the servants on watch for his return caught sight of him, they called out to everyone that he was approaching, and the whole household turned out to meet him, wondering much what the retinue of men bearing presents and banners that followed him could mean.
The presents which he had received from the grateful Dragon Queen were found to be magical. Only the bell was ordinary, and as Hidesato had no use for it, he presented it to the temple nearby, where it was hung up to boom out the hour of day over the surrounding neighborhood. The single bag of rice was inexhaustible. However much was taken from it day after day for the meals of Hidesato and his whole family, the supply in the bag never grew less.
The roll of silk, too, never grew shorter, though time after time, long pieces were cut off to make the warrior a new suit of clothes to go to court in at the new year.
The cooking pot was wonderful, too. No matter what was put into it, it cooked deliciously whatever was wanted without any need for wood or a fire. Truly a very economical saucepan.
The flute would play perfectly, no matter who played. Its music set the perfect mood and brought joy to all its listeners. The fame of Hidesato's fortune spread far and wide, and as there was no need for him to spend money on rice or silk or firewood, he became very rich and prosperous and was henceforth known as My Lord Bag of Rice.
glad you're here to see this. They have been working very hard. And because we had a little pizza glitch, we're a little late. So, but they have been fed. They just haven't had an extra rehearsal. Welcome to the last day of the Cultural Activities Center Summer Art Camp, the China version. Today you're going to see a wonderful show, albeit very short. It is a showcase showing you what your children can do with very little and very little time. But first I want to tell you about the teachers. Our awesome teachers have had such a good time. They feel like, I don't think they feel like they shouldn't get paid, but they feel like a little guilty about getting paid and having so much fun. Our teachers are Suzanne Besser for theater, Stephen Bishop, Asian art, Betsy Chamley Gunlock, drawing and painting, Byron Lovelace, technical director and theater, George Narrow, wise art. Couldn't think of anything else to call it. It's such a variety. And Robbie Thompson did 3D art. Our leaders are listed in your program because this year we had so many leaders, but I didn't want to spend time telling you, but they were incredible. Listen carefully. Take home your art. It is your art now, and it is wonderful. There have been some wonderful projects, and be sure and take them home. Last week we were very fortunate and only had one left, but please take home your art and take home the lunch boxes. The lunch boxes are lined up in the lobby, and which we try to make it obvious that they need a home. And after the performance, there will be refreshments and an exhibit in Wenland Hall, and you're all invited. It's mostly a bunch of cookies and some fruit, so have a healthy snack after the performance. This afternoon's performance will feature costumes and props and scenery made by the students, but they were designed mostly by the students and the director and the technical director. They are incredible. Today is a very old story, but it has been revised by the Honorable Byron Lovelace and the Honorable Suzanne Besser. And the name of the show this afternoon is The Seven Chinese Brothers. Thank you.
Long ago, there was an old, good-hearted couple who lived all by themselves on a large bamboo farm in China. They loved their bamboo because of its wonderful qualities. Bamboo is smooth and beautiful on the outside and able to withstand high winds and gracefully right itself after a storm. Bamboo is a very strong wood, but it is not a tree. It is a grass. a grass that can be built into houses, furniture, and wonderful musical instruments. Because of its many wonderful qualities, for the Chinese people, bamboo is a symbol for righteousness and resilience. Though very happy, the old couple grieved because they had no children. Then, one morning, while the old woman washed clothes by the river, a cloud of smoke arose. A great spirit appeared. He said, "Because you have been so faithful to tend the bamboo, here are 7 golden pills. Eat one each day, and soon you'll finally have children." When the great spirit left, the woman thought a moment, took all 7 pills at once, because 7 days seemed like such a terribly long time. In autumn, she gave birth to 7 sons. The 7 brothers grew quickly. Each was blessed with a special power. The eldest, great strength. The second, super hearing. The third was harder than iron. The fourth could bore through anything. The fifth, fireproof. The 6th could stretch endlessly. And the youngest could swallow anything. The happy family worked on their beloved bamboo farm. One day, they heard a band of bugles. When they looked to see what was coming, it was the emperor on parade. The procession was an awesome sight. The long march of soldiers approached, winding through the bamboo forest like a coiled dragon. Then, suddenly, a huge boulder came crashing down the mountainside. It tumbled toward the emperor. Oh my, what was there to do? The emperor is surely about to die. Then, somebody rushed up the mountain, stopped the boulder, picked it up, and carried it a safe distance from the emperor and his parade. Who was the hero? Who else but the eldest brother, the one with great strength? The emperor and the young man had the young man brought to him. In reward for saving him, the emperor offered him a high post in his palace. But the eldest brother was very happy with his family on the beautiful bamboo farm, so he humbly refused the emperor's gift. The emperor was not comfortable leaving the brother with only his thanks, so he offered the eldest brother a cart full of gold and a whole company of servants, bearing fine treasures. But the eldest brother knew that a simple life, filled with just enough, but not too much, was happier than a life complicated with gold, servants, or worldly treasures. And so he humbly refused the gifts. The emperor was still not comfortable giving his hero nothing but his thanks, but he could see no way to repay the man, and at last let him go back to his family. Returning to the palace, the emperor's heart was uneasy. Such a small fellow, but yet so strong. He has no love of wealth, so I have no control of him. He may be trouble one day. The emperor could not sleep until an evil plan was set.
That's it! I shall arrest him and have his head chopped off.
Second brother had powerful hearing, so he heard the evil plan. He called his brothers around him, and they made a plan of their own. When the soldiers arrived at the bamboo farm, third brother, not first brother, came to meet the soldiers. The lead soldier seized the brother, knelt him down, drew his sword, and whack! But the sword did not hurt the young man. Instead, it broke into 2 pieces. The soldier ordered another sword, but it also broke when he tried to cut off the head of the brother with the bones like iron. Sword after sword broke, all to no avail. The soldier was troubled that he could not carry out the emperor's wishes. He seized the brother and hauled him back to the emperor's prison. When the emperor heard what happened, he was furious and ordered the man burned alive first thing the next morning. Again, second brother heard the plan, and brothers 4 and 5 leapt into action. Late that night, fourth brother secretly bore past the walls of the fortified city. Fifth brother followed closely behind him. They drilled under the prison walls and up to where third brother had been locked up. Fifth brother took third's place. At dawn, the soldiers escorted fifth brother to a tall scaffold and stacked firewood underneath. Fifth brother was tightly tied on top. The fire was set and soon blazed high, but fifth brother was fireproof. Fiery red flames licked the sky, yet he just smiled. When the emperor heard of this, he was furious. Finally, the emperor clapped his hands in disgust and ordered the brother back to his cell. During the night, fifth brother pretended to talk in his sleep. I cannot be chopped or burned. My only fear is falling to my death. The soldier heard him and rushed to report to the emperor. The emperor clapped his hands in glee. At last, he knew how to get rid of the brother. The next morning, the brother was taken to the cliffs and pushed towards the edge. But during the night, sixth brother took fifth brother's place. When the soldier pushed sixth brother off the cliff, his legs stretched and stretched and stretched and gently reached the bottom. Then he lowered himself to his normal height and ran back home to his bamboo farm. The emperor was enraged and ordered the soldiers to chase after that terrible brother. The soldiers chased after him. Then, suddenly, there stood the brother in the middle of the road, blocking the way of the soldiers. But this was not sixth brother, it was seventh. Everyone came to a sudden stop. The emperor rushed up to the brother and said, Of course, he was at once knocked down, tied up, and taken aboard the emperor's boat and sailed out to sea. The emperor himself shoved seventh brother over the side. Soon, the surface of the water became quiet and calm, not a ripple. The emperor broke into a big grin. He believed his enemy was now fish food. Then, fifth brother opened his mouth and swallowed the entire sea. Suddenly, there was a thunderous boom. The ship's bottom crunched down on the rocky ocean floor. Everyone looked over the ship's rail and saw that it was sitting on dry land. The emperor and his soldiers looked this way and that way for the brother, and then spied him way off yonder, strolling to the sea's edge. When he reached the shore, he opened his mouth, and the sea flooded out like a gigantic sea dragon, shaking the earth. Monstrous waves rushed and roared, 1 second swallowing up the ship and the Emperor. On the shore, the 7 brothers, their parents, and all of their neighbors gathered together for a great celebration, led by the wonderful mother, father, and the 7 magic Chinese brothers.